You know, for decades, we've been told that losing weight is basically always to be considered a good thing. The scale goes down and everybody celebrates. The doctor notices. Your friends notice. Your family notices. You buy smaller clothes and people tell you how great you look. But what if I told you that sometimes losing 20 pounds can actually make you weaker? What if the very thing you're celebrating today could be quietly increasing your risk of falling, reducing your metabolism, lowering your energy, and making it harder to remain independent later in life? You see, the scale only tells you how much you weigh, the gravitational pull of the earth on your body. It doesn't tell you what you lost. And that distinction may be costing people far more than they realize today on the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast.
Welcome to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast
with Garrett Williamson.
Health, wellness, exercise, nutrition, and a whole lot more. Got questions? Call us and leave a message at 251-278-EDGE or message us at Personal Edge Fitness on Facebook and Instagram, at Team PE on Twitter, or personaledgefitness.com.
Welcome to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast. I'm Garrett Williamson, president of Personal Edge Fitness. As always, if you have any questions about today's shows, suggestions for future topics, or would like information about any of our programs, we'd love to hear from you. Today we're talking about something that has become one of the biggest conversations in health and fitness, especially with the absolute explosion of the GLP-1 medications, the weight loss programs, and the increasing focus on the number on the scale. We're talking about what I call the muscle loss tax. And it starts with a very simple question. If you lost 20 pounds, what exactly did you lose? Here's the myth. Most people assume if the scale goes down, health automatically goes up. But that's not always true. Imagine walking into your financial advisor's office and proudly announcing that you've lost $50,000. His first statement wouldn't be congratulations. His first question would be, lost what? Did you pay off debt? That would be good. Or did you lose part of your retirement account? That answer matters. Well, the same thing happens with weight loss. The scale doesn't know the difference between losing fat, muscle, bone, or water. Unfortunately, many people don't know the difference either. It's amazing how much we focus on that one number. And that's where the problems begin. One of the greatest misconceptions in fitness is that muscle is primarily cosmetic. People think muscle exists so we can fill out a t-shirt or look better at the beach. Trust me, vanity's my favorite sin. I can understand that. But that's like saying the engine exists to make a car look prettier. Muscle is your movement system. It's your metabolic engine. It's your blood sugar regulator. It's your balance protector. It also happens to be your shock absorbers, protecting the joints. It is your independent insurance policy for maintaining your independence. In fact, one of the things we consistently see in research is that individuals with greater muscle mass and strength tend to remain more functional, more independent, and more resilient as time passes on the calendar, which means they end up having more years. Notice I didn't say younger. I said more capable. That's an important distinction. Look at two hypothetical people. Both lose 20 pounds. A person loses 18 pounds of fat and 2 pounds of muscle. Person B loses 10 pounds of fat and 10 pounds of muscle. The scale celebrates both equally. The body does not. One person became healthier. The other simply became lighter. And those are not the same thing. And typically, person B, the person who lost 10 pounds of fat and 10 pounds of muscle, that's when you get that sickly look. Yeah, they lost weight, but they look kind of gaunt, kind of sickly. At Personal Edge Fitness, we've seen this many times over the years. Someone walks in excited because they've lost weight. And I'm excited for them. Then we start looking deeper. We start asking, how's your energy? How's your strength? How's your balance? How's your endurance? How is that affecting your daily activities? Because capability is the goal. The scale is simply one measurement. Let's talk about the GLP-1. It's kind of the elephant in the room. Now, looking at GLP-1 medications, this is what we use to call them in general. You know them as Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro, Zepbound, Tirzepatide. There's tons of them. These medications they've changed lives. And you've heard me talk about this on the podcast before. I'm actually a fan. I'm not opposed to it by any means. but we have to understand what they actually are. I've seen people lose substantial amounts of weight. I've seen blood sugars improve. I've seen people regain confidence and mobility. But there's an important conversation emerging. This is what we're seeing so many people come to PE for. Some people are losing muscle along with the fat. In fact, the majority of people that we see that go on GLP-1 are losing muscle along with the fat. Again, I'm not against it by any means. I'm not against using this as a wonderful tool. This is not a criticism of the medication. A hammer isn't good or bad. It depends on how it's used. The question isn't whether the medication works. The question is whether you're protecting the muscle while you're losing the weight. And in this case, while you're losing the fat. That's what you're really interested in. Because if you're not, you may be paying what we call a muscle loss tax. Now, before we continue, be on the lookout. You knew this was coming. From an upcoming book, The Lie of Age, where we take a much deeper look at why ability is determined by fitness, nutrition, lifestyle, and mindset, and has absolutely nothing to do, not related in any way, shape, or form, by the date on your driver's license. Now, let's get back to this muscle loss tax and why seniors should pay attention. If there's one group that should pay particular attention to this, is older adults. When a 30-year-old loses muscle, they often have years or even decades to rebuild it. Again, it has nothing to do with their number at the time. It's just that they seem to have many years to rebuild it. When an 80-year-old loses muscle, the consequences can be much greater. Now, standing up by that time in their lifestyle, not because of the number on their calendar, but because the changes in their lifestyle, they've done less activity, they've affected their nutrition, what have you, and therefore most likely they've had muscle loss even before they started the weight loss. But now, standing up becomes harder. Not just energy level, but standing up becomes harder. Stairs become harder. Balance becomes harder. Falls become more likely. And it's mainly because they had some muscle loss prior to starting the weight loss program where they lost more muscle. Your goal isn't to weigh what you weighed in high school. There's no bearing on this. Your goal is to maintain the abilities that allow you to enjoy life. Those are two completely different objectives. Now, this brings us back to one of the central themes, and actually the central theme you'll hear repeatedly on this podcast. People often say, I'm losing muscle because I'm getting older. Well, quite frankly, that's just an excuse. That's all it is. It's an excuse. What we're really seeing is the body's adaptation to what you're feeding it, what you're doing with it, to how you're challenging it. When you do less movement, that produces a situation where you can't do as much movement. When you do less strength training, then you get into a certain situation where you can't get stronger. Less activity, less protein, less expectation. The body adapts. And you heard me talk about this in another podcast. It adapts to what you do to it. The question is, what are you asking it to adapt to? Because the body cares as much about how many years you have on the calendar as it does about your favorite color. It has no bearing on this whatsoever. It only knows what you're repeatedly asking it to do. Okay, here's a weekly challenge. This week, I want you to stop focusing solely on the scale, the weight. Again, the gravitational pull of the earth on your body. That's what it is. Instead, ask yourself 4 questions. Am I getting stronger? Am I moving better? Am I maintaining muscle? And am I becoming more capable? Because capability is ultimately what matters, not simply seeing the gravitational pull of the earth on your body change. Today, we discuss why losing weight and becoming healthier are not always the same thing, why preserving muscle may be one of the most important investments you'll ever make, and why the body responds more to challenge than it does to birthdays. The goal isn't simply to lose pounds. The goal is to build and preserve the abilities that allow you to live the life you want to live. And understanding the difference between weight loss and muscle loss is just one more way we help you reach your level of wellness. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast with Garrett Williamson. Subscribe now and be a part of the show by calling 251-278-EDGE or message us on Facebook and Instagram at Personal Edge Fitness or at Team PE on Twitter, and visit us at personaledgefitness.com.
Did you know only 22% of 8th graders are proficient in civics? It's a statistic that affects all our futures. But Alabama's Liberty Learning Foundation is changing the headlines. We partner with schools to go beyond the textbook, teaching civics, character, and financial literacy in a way that empowers students to make a real impact in their own communities. Help Liberty Learning Foundation build the leaders Alabama needs. Join the movement today at libertylearning.org.